Welcome to Short and to the Point, a podcast from the Comeback in Awful Announcing. Here's your host, Jessica Kleinschmidt.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Short and to the Point on Awful Announcing and the Comeback. Jess here. Thank you for tuning in. I want to give another special big thank you to everybody tuning in week after week, each and every time. I read your DMs and I'm so appreciative just to get a text or a message thanking me and Philip for all the hard work really means a lot. I'm falling in love with this podcast each and every time. I love getting to know other people and knowing that we all kind of share this sports media landscape and sometimes just the sports landscape is just really cool to share with everybody. And I'm just really thankful for this opportunity. And we also have a lot of fun guests coming up, and I'm very thankful for that. People actually want to come on this podcast. It's so cool. anyways, we have a lot of baseball stuff to go over, despite it being a very cold winter, both on and off the field. There are so many free agents available, you guys. Like, what is going on here? I think there's a lot that we need to wait for. There's some RSN issues, and all the money is in Shohei Ohtani's pocket at the moment. But since we were sticking with the baseball theme, Eduardo Pérez of ESPN stops by. I've admired his work from afar, and just to know that he is not only a former player, but his dad is a Hall of Famer. And so he spent time in a major league clubhouse growing up. He's an extension of the players, especially an extension of the Latino community that is growing in Major League Baseball. It's not significant or big quite yet, as significant as it should be and will continue to be. So we, of course, touch on that and everything else baseball related and just his journey from being in a uniform to in a suit and tie with a microphone. Here's my chat with ESPN's Eduardo Pérez. Well, as I promised, as Eduardo is here, Eduardo, thank you so much for stopping by. It's such a pleasure to have you on.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jessica. This is actually my first journey here, and I see the background. It's a lot of caricatures and personalities, and Danny Wexelman. Pretty cool.
There is. She's just the best. And I'm just so, and she's a friend of the podcast as well. So I'm glad we're continuing the baseball friendly faces here on Short and to the Point. And speaking of baseball, there's a lot to go over. And, you know, you've seen so many different eras of the game from when you were playing. And now, of course, you're on the analyst side. How have you adjusted to some of the changes over the years?
I think I've always had to adjust, because I grew up in the game. When I was born, my dad was already an established major leaguer. And so I grew up in a clubhouse. And I think that was the first training that I had before I could even walk, was already being carried in by players, by, if it was clubhouse staff, into the clubhouse. And for me, it's my comfort zone. And that's the way I've always seen it. And I've known and I've seen as a son of a former major leaguer, as a student of the game later in my teen years, and then wondering what I was going to do within the game. I never thought I was going to play. I always thought I was going to be part of the game somehow, watching Marty Brenneman on 700 WLW in Cincinnati, listening to him on the radio with Joe Nuxall. And I got a passion for it. And just to listen every night, those games, especially on the West Coast, when my mom would say, go to sleep, and we're listening to the radio. And it's 1 o'clock in the morning and it's the 8th inning. And we're like, there's no way we're going to sleep right now. We need to hear this one belongs to the Reds. And that was his signature series that he would say for the Cincinnati Reds. From then on, it went to Florida State. From Florida State, got drafted. And I'm going, wow, this could be real. And then all of a sudden I start my professional career. And my view changed completely from being that outsider to now being an insider, but still being an outsider, not getting to the big leagues. And I was fortunate to have gone through Palm Springs, Midland, Texas, go to Vancouver, British Columbia. And that was a game changer for me there in Vancouver for that half season that I was there before I got called up, because Seattle was just a couple hours down south. And on our days off, or days that we had games in the afternoon, we'd, right after the game, rush over to Seattle. And my childhood friend was with the Seattle Mariners, and that's Ken Griffey Jr. And he would give me bats. He would take care of me. Come on down, check this out, and leave tickets. And it was like, wow, I'm just one step away from playing with my friends again. And it changed my perspective. And then, because of injuries, up and downs, I was able to have a wonderful 13-year Major League career. And now around year 7, I was already thinking, what am I going to do next? In the game, in the sport. And I was fortunate to have gone to the Cleveland Indians then, now Cleveland Guardians, and have met this gentleman by the name of Bart Swain, who is the PR director for the Guardians. And he's like, you should seriously consider television. And this was 2006. I did not know that was going to be my last year. He was the one that introduced me to the media side of everything in a real form, doing baseball postseason with all the star analysts there. And I'm like, okay, now I can see it in a different light. I also at the same time started managing a couple years later in winter ball. And then I saw it as a coach and as a manager. I got hired by the Marlins later as a coach, then the Astros. And just I've had my foot in so many viewpoints that for what I do right now, it's so gratifying to be able to explain that second generation player, or that major leaguer, or that analyst, or that coach, or that manager, that I really have a really cool appreciation of the sport.
And it's really cool. And you talk about like that like every single time you adjusted your mentality, you mentioned at FSU, like we could actually make something out of this. Walk me through that mentality, because there's still a love there for the game, but does the respect change? Does it mature? What's that mentality like?
Well, the respect never changes. And that's one thing that's always been a constant with me, because I'm a product of baseball. My parents met because both parents are Cuban, and they met in Puerto Rico when my dad went to play winter ball. 5 months later, they're married. They're still married. It's like, it's that love that they have for each other. They also have for the sport. And I'm appreciative of the sport, and I always want to give back to it. I'm appreciative also in the way that the sport has opened the doors to the Latino players as well. Over 33.5% of the players in Major League Baseball are Latino. Over 50% in minor league baseball are Latino as well. So I can identify, and I can also be a face for those that do not speak the language well or do not understand the culture well, to help them understand the U.S. culture well, also with the adaptation. And, to be able to broadcast now games in English, my second language, is actually pretty cool. And to be relate to them is really cool as well. But getting back to that Florida State situation, it was also opening the door of, like, if I do well here, I'm also opening the door for all the Puerto Rican, at the time that I was thinking, players that do not speak well, but understand that they might need to have that education before going to play professional, or maybe representing the game in some other aspect, or being a professional in some other thing that doesn't have to do with baseball, but you can use baseball as a tool to achieve your dreams.
When I talk to former players who are now in the broadcast booth, there's a responsibility there to kind of be an extension of the player. And you have that, but you also have an extension of the Latin community too. So talk about that responsibility, because it's a twofold. You're still embracing it. It's a growing representation, but there's still more room for growth.
Yeah, but overall, I can never lose the big picture of this game will continue without us, right? Once you're done, there will be another player that comes in and will take that spot and will continue to represent the sport well. And I try to tell every player when I meet them, I let them know, look, I'm a big cheerleader of yours, because this goes for the American player as well as the Latino player, just for the player that wears that uniform, because you have to represent the brand well. And the brand is Major League Baseball. The brand is the organization you play with, and the brand is yourself as well. You have to represent that well. And as a major leaguer, there's no higher level than this. It's not if you make more salary than someone else. There's no higher level than major leagues. So fundamentally, you have to be ready. Mentally, you have to be ready. And what I tell them when I broadcast games is like, look, physical mistakes will happen. Errors will happen. Look at my fielding percentage. It was not great. But you have to fundamentally be great at what you do when it comes to the mental side of the game. You have to be prepared. And if you're not, my job is to be able to identify that and be able to explain that to the fan. It's not explain it to the rest of the players. It's explain it to the fan bases that are out there and are living every moment through you, through their fan base, through their team. And if I try to sugarcoat it to protect you, the player, I'm not doing my job.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be the best I can be, but you also have to be the best major leaguer that you can be. And it's a different adjustment than when I'm broadcasting little league games or if I'm broadcasting college games, or even if I were to broadcast a minor league game, because I know that there's a higher level. But at the major league brand, there isn't a higher level, nowhere. And for that, I have a responsibility to the fan.
And the way that you approach some of your interviews and just the broadcast, there's an ease, there's like a laid backness to you. Where does that come from?
That's my personality. Jessica, I told myself when I got to the big leagues at the beginning, I was trying to, just be that yes guy of like, okay, you want me to hit like this? I'll hit like this. You want me to throw like this? I'll throw like this. You want me to field like this? I'll field like this. I came to the conclusion later on in my career that if I was going to do something, I was going to do it my way. I was going to show my personality. If I wanted to have fun in the game, I was going to have fun in the game, but I was always going to respect the game in the process. Same thing goes with this. At the beginning, I will not lie to you. When that red light turned on, I was Mr. Nervous. I mean, the heartbeat would be racing doing baseball tonight. But the more reps you get, and the more you understand that it translates better if you are who you are, instead of just trying to be cookie cutter, it doesn't work. I have an experience that not a lot of people have, having all that background that we spoke about earlier. And because of that, I need to be able to get that across to the fan and get that across to the player as well, that I was at one time sitting where you were. And I'm here just to help you. And that's why I'm involved with the rookie program that Major League Baseball and the Players Association has, because I understand the process and how hard it is to not only get to the big leagues, but to stay there and to be able to be a fan favorite for your fan base.
And that's awesome. And it's interesting though, because being a former player yourself, you dealt with the media. So what was that relationship like when you kind of observed them from when you were wearing a uniform? Has that changed over the years? Were you surprised when you yourself put on the suit and tie compared to like over the years as far as how the media handles players?
It really did. It did. Some aspects, I won't lie to you, it did. Because you listen to some of the players that are like, hey, don't trust the media. Don't do this, do that. But I also grew up having flown with my father on commercial flights in Major League Baseball, where the Cincinnati Reds back then and a lot of teams would fly commercial. And the media would also be on those flights. And I used to see that dynamic where the media, you could say the beat writers of that organization had a personal relationship also with the players. You could see them at the hotel bar together, sometimes having conversations, and you didn't have to always say off the record. They knew. They knew. And now it's different. It's different because we have so many outlets. Everybody wants to get the news out there first, even if it's not right. So you have to be careful, but you have to be respectful of the job that they also have to do, and understand that, look, even as a player, we used to get out of the ballpark sometimes at 11:30. I did not realize that those beat writers weren't getting out of there until another hour after, because they had to go to the clubhouse, but then write and be able to put that down and have a deadline to do so. And, so I've learned to have a different appreciation for the media, because I've been doing this now a lot longer than I played in the big leagues.
Wow.
So it's, Tim Kirchin is one of my big time mentors, and I'm one of the biggest fans of Tim from day one. And he's shown me the ropes of all the things and told me the stories, which I love listening to his stories, of of, just the Earl Weavers and seeing the process now compared to what to what it is now. It's completely different, but it's still exhilarating for that person. And I try to always make sure that I have that passion the same way that I did when I played, than I do now when I broadcast.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to the speed of it too, or like over time, we couldn't tweet up until not that long ago. So when it came to posting some of these articles, you got to wait for a little bit until they were fresh off the press. Was that kind of a shock to you too, where you could say something and you tweet it really quickly? Now it's online comparatively to the beginning of your career.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
That's completely nuts. What do you call it anyway? Do you still call it Twitter?
I can't help it because I got a big break on Twitter. Like that's what started my career. And so I do Twitter/X. I don't know.
So do you realize that maybe, let's say in 5 years, you're going to be considered almost a dinosaur for calling it Twitter? That's, those are all like the little things that I think about. I used to use not Twitter, but I used to use like a sub outlet, which was Twitter, but it's called Echo Phone. They completely banned all the other secondary market things, and just you had to go to Twitter before it changed to X. And I don't know. I just think it's so overwhelming. You go in there, you can read everything you want. I try to carve out 30 minutes in the morning and an hour at night, and I limit it to that. And that way, at least I can have a life outside of just your cell phone, which is all
refresh button,
hand side away, right?
Yeah, now I'm all stressed. Now I have to call it X. I don't want the young kids to be like, what's Twitter? Grow up, Jess. It's time to grow up. Yes, I am attached to the Twitter name. It's fine. Let's talk about opening day on ESPN, specifically this Cubs-Rangers game. I'm really looking forward to it because of all the storylines involved. What are some of those headlines that you're really looking forward to covering?
Well, let's start with the managers. Let's start with both, right? You got Craig Counsell now with the Chicago Cubs, big time deal that he has with the Chicago Cubs, and you have a future Hall of Famer in Bruce Bochy, who most likely would have been going in this coming year. And now he took the reins in Texas, and that gets delayed, but he also has a championship coming in. So you look at those two guys, and you know that they have led well. One is looking for his first world championship as a manager, already has one, has a couple as a player. So it's a great dynamic. We still don't know what we're going to see with the Chicago Cubs. Is Cody Bellinger going to be a part of it or not? I think that's going to change the dynamic of the Chicago Cubs in a major way if he is a part of the Cubs. And you see with CubsCon this past week in Chicago, the players want Cody. And he's a great clubhouse guy. He adapted well to the Midwest. He adapted well to the cold weather early on, and the Cubs fans respected that. And he changed. So we don't know what kind of player he's going to be. Is he going to be the Cody Bellinger that we saw last year that doesn't strike out a lot, high average, both on the road and at home, both against righties and lefties? Or is he going to be the Cody Bellinger that we saw in 2021 and 22, the one that was inconsistent? Or are we going to see the power hitting guy that we saw in 2019, the Cody Bellinger that was absolutely fantastic? But one way or another, this is a very good team with a very good manager in the Chicago Cubs. And then we have the world champs in the Texas Rangers, who continue to get better, who will continue to be led the right way and coached the right way and delegated the right way. And that's Bruce Bochy, who sits back and lets his coaches do the job. But the middle of the infield there is what I love the most. It's just veteran guys that lead well. And because of that, these are two teams that I think should make the postseason this upcoming year. And I got the Cubs in this one because of the leadership of Counsell.
And tell me about that, because I know you used the term kind of surprising when you heard about the Counsell hiring for the Cubs. Were you more surprised about that hiring, maybe the monetary value attached, versus Bochy's return to Major League managing?
First, I was happy and proud that managers are now getting paid what they're supposed to. And hopefully this is a start to it. And it's not anomaly of one team doing this. I think, managers should be compensated, and coaches at Major League Baseball who are not compensated well at all should be compensated better. If you look at the college ranks, I'm not only talking football and basketball, I'm talking NFL and NBA, but also even in the NCAA baseball side of it, coaches are making more money. And we've seen it. We've seen coaches from the major league teams leave major league teams in midseason and go to college programs. Just saying. So there's a way of. So when I heard that news of Craig Counsell getting paid what he did and staying close to home because everyone thought he was going to New York, it showed me that the family value aspect of it is important. The true Midwestern guy showed up. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, he's going to manage a storied franchise that has only won one time in a long time, and that was in 2016.
How can a manager be a difference maker?
Allowing the players to be themselves, empowering them and not entitling them, and being able to delegate really well with their coaches. I think that's one of the biggest things that you can do. I remember Sparky Anderson one time in the Otesaga Hotel in Cooperstown, the year that he got inducted, came up to me, and Sparky, obviously shorter, but he would grab you through the face like this. Mm-hmm. This right hand, he would smack the living daylights out of you 3 times. As a kid and as an adult, he would always do it. And I was like, here it comes, but you have to take it because it's a Sparky smack, right? Yeah. It said, and I said, Sparky, what was the secret to you managing both Cincinnati and Detroit successfully? And he goes, you want to make sure that they want to get to the ballpark. If you do that, these are big leaguers, and they will produce and they will give you their all. Get out of their way. Just make sure that they want to get to the ballpark. Treat them as you would treat yourself. And I was like, okay, so what does that really mean in the big picture? So I started thinking of all the little things that he used to do when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. One of them, he would gather all the kids around in spring training at Al Lopez Field in Tampa. And he would tell the kids and would set the rules. What manager pulls all the kids from the players and says, okay, we're having a team meeting, a kids meeting, we're having a kids meeting, the manager of a major league team. And he'd say, okay, these are the rules. If we lose, you guys are not allowed into the clubhouse. An hour before the game starts, you guys are to be out of the clubhouse. The players have to get their work in, but I want you in the tunnels at Riverfront Stadium, and I want you playing wiffle ball. So I'm going to go out there sometimes and check on you guys. He never did. Yeah. But we were always out there playing wiffle ball. Ken Griffey Jr., my brother, Ed Sprague Jr., you could talk Lee May Jr., all these guys would be out there. We'd be playing. And when the game started, I want you sitting in the seats, the family section, 105 at Riverfront Stadium, and I want you yelling at the umpires. And we did all that because we thought Sparky was always paying attention to us. What it taught us was the game. It gave us repetition as well, the motor skills. Mm-hmm. But what it also did for the players was it was welcoming to their children. And because it was welcoming to their children, they wanted to get to the ballpark as well because they knew they could spend more time with family. Mm-hmm. And the family was also at the ballpark. So all that generated success. Obviously, talent had a lot to do with it, but it generated success. And I think that played in a major way. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but 12 of us signed professionally at one point, and 5 of us won in the first round.
Oh, I love that.
Pretty cool.
Thing. And, I've had my 2 managers were Bob Melvin and Mark Kotze, and they just have always let the guys be themselves, whether it was a struggling team or not. But we're not in every single clubhouse, and I'm only in there maybe 1 hour per game. If you were to observe a team from afar, would you be able to tell if the manager is trying too hard to get control over his clubhouse?
You by listening to some of the answers, you sort of do. Okay. Sometimes when you ask who's the leader of the clubhouse, and if a manager says, well, right now we don't have one and it has to be me, it's going to be a long season. It's going to be a long season. All these things come out organically. They come out via conversation. They come out via identifying who those guys are that can lead those young players the right way. And not necessarily it's that you have a winning season, it's that you're creating that winning culture. And the responsibility to not only your teammates, but to the fan base as well, and to the city. And I think all that plays. I remember in 2004 and 5, I was with the Tampa Bay Rays, and it was Devil Rays at the time, not Rays. Devil Rays.
I was funny. I was looking at your baseball reference page, and the D was there, and I'm like, oh right, they were the Devil Rays.
Just like the Twitters, the X's, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So he called me, and that was Lou Piniella calls me, and he goes, look, I want you to be on our team. We got Tino on our team. I've had conversations with Tino and Tino Martinez, who was with me also with the St. Louis Cardinals. He said, we need, Tino can lead on the field playing every day. I need somebody that can lead in that clubhouse every day as well. And, we want to bring you in. I'm not going to lie to you. We're not a winning team. We're going to get our butts kicked in, but we have really good talent. And I want you to be able to teach these guys with this talent how to be major leaguers. And it was Carl Crawford. It was Rocco Baldelli. Wow. It was Toby Hall. It was guys that had a really good future or could make an imprint in the game. And you know what? I was up for the challenge. And I always remember my dad saying, look, if you're going to be that role player, if you're going to play against just left-handed pitching, make sure you pick a division that is conducive to you to have success, or with the matchups, or also make sure that you're on a winning ball club because less changes are made. I had to make an executive decision because I knew that the Devil Rays at the time weren't a winning organization, but I wanted to leave my imprint. And every time I go see the Minnesota Twins, I'm so proud of Rocco Baldelli. When Carl Crawford got his deal with the Red Sox and then he moved down to LA and stuff, I was proud for Carl Crawford. Those are the imprints, everlasting imprints that you have in the game, and you sort of go out there and you own it, and you understand what your role is. And if you can have at this time now 26 men that can be a team and not be 26 individuals, even if you don't make the postseason, you can always find success in that season. And that's what you have to take out of being able to be a leader at the major league level.
It's taken me a little bit actually to bring up Shohei Ohtani, but we're going to do it now. Think about you're in the middle of your career, you're middle of your playing career, and I give you a crystal ball, and I say, one day there's going to be the superstar player, and he's going to be paid $700 million. On top of that, the Dodgers are going to spend $1 billion on 2 huge superstars. What would cross your mind when you heard that news?
Wow, the game is in really good condition. That means the game is really making a lot of money. The only way that ownership is going to spend that type of money is if they know that they can make more on it. And look, they're going to be able to capitalize huge when it comes to the media market in Japan, to be able to sell those rights, to be able to become the brand, and not only in Major League Baseball, but worldwide. Identifiable. And I think that's what plays in a major way with the LA Dodgers organization right now. But if you were to tell me this 15 years ago, Jessica, I would have said you were nuts. Now I understand it because I cover it. But to have the ability, and not only that, it's not like Shohei's won world championships. It's not like Shohei has played in the postseason. He is not. He's got the World Baseball Classic. I'll give him that. And I was there for that last out against Mike Trout, and it was exhilarating, and it was great. But now Shohei has to come through for that fan base and be healthy. But he's getting paid now as a designated hitter. We're still going to find out if that second surgery that was not called Tommy John worked. I mean, those are a lot of what ifs. But the Dodgers will gamble with who Shohei Ohtani is as a person.
Yeah, it's really cool to see, and I like that we're embracing the brand as well. That's great for the game. Last one before I let you go. What does the future look like for coach or manager Eduardo Pérez?
I don't know. I really don't know. Right now, it's the broadcaster, Eduardo Pérez. And the broadcaster, Eduardo Pérez, is really happy with where he's at. I'm talking a third person like Ricky, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm very accustomed to that. It's okay. Yes.
That's kind of crazy. But no, I love where I'm at right now. And I love the family that I've created, that I have at ESPN. They've been wonderful to me. I love from the leadership standpoint to my teammates. Tim's coaching, as I mentioned earlier, and I'll mention Carl Ravitch as well. It's all about the team. It's all about the team, and you have to have that camaraderie. You have to have that team aspect, and we've created that there. We've created it with Coney. We've created it with our producers and our directors as well. And I think that's what plays big into this. It's I can call them, and it doesn't have to be just about the job. It can be about family. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what you want in any job, in any workplace. You want to be able to have that. And not only that, I've created an extension to the family as well. Sorry about Mickey, but Mickey shows up all the time.
That's okay.
Yeah. He travels with me to the College World Series.
Oh, I love that.
It's a family dynamic that we have. Now, do I miss putting on the uniform? Do I miss the clubhouse? Do I miss that? Like, I was raised in the clubhouse. But I get to get my fix every Sunday. Mm-hmm. I get to get my fix during spring training. I think that plays huge into who I am as a person. And most importantly, I've been able to see my girls, my two daughters, and grow up, graduate, be there for their big moments. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I was coaching, if I was managing, if I was in the front office, spending a lot of time on the field. So for that I have zero regrets, because that's the coolest part of the gig.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. This was great. Thanks so much for stopping by.
You got it. And don't be afraid to tell Danny that Mickey made a...
Oh, of course not. She'll be very jealous.
Made an appearance. She'll be very jealous.
That was ESPN's Eduardo Pérez. So thankful he stopped by. Can I just say, he is such an ally for not just women in the industry, but like, he's just a phenomenal colleague. And every time I talk about him, I'm told, just take care of him, Jess. Be nice. All my friends tell me to be nice. I am very nice. I just, come off strong sometimes. It's a whole different podcast, but Eduardo is the best. And it's so good to hear from him. He has so many stories, and I always connect really with these former players turned broadcasters, because, they were in it. And a lot of times you're going to see the guys and talk to the guys who perhaps weren't the superstars, but they were very observant, and they saw everything that happened both in the clubhouse and on the field, developing the relationships that aren't defined by a number on your baseball reference page, on your Fangraphs page. And it was just great to hear from him. So I'm very thankful for that. So thank you for tuning in to Short and to the Point once again on the Comeback and Awful Announcing. Subscribe, follow where all of the podcasts are available. You can also follow us on YouTube. Just search Awful Announcing. We have all the fun content there as well. And thank you once again to Philip for all of the things, because he keeps this ship afloat. And I will see you next time.
Want even more short and to the point? Follow Jessica at Kleinschmidt JD and head over to thecomeback.com and awfulannouncing.com.